Thank you everyone for being here. This is my second workshop on longevity and brain health, which there's like lots of crossover of information and suggestions on how to level up your brain health. It kind of aligns very much with longevity anyway. So I'm just going to talk a bit about my experience from my nursing practice and what longevity is, the benefits of supporting your longevity, how to go about it, a little bit about the blue zones because they're super fascinating, and then we'll go on to some brain health info. So I was a practice nurse for pretty much all of my nursing career, and I saw so much suffering, so many people that live for decades unwell. So they get to sort of 50 or 60 and these chronic lifestyle diseases would hit them hard, especially when I think of people with COPD, chronic lung disease, not being able to walk really from their bed to the toilet, always wearing oxygen. It's just dreadful, the suffering that's out there, and a lot of this can be prevented with what we choose to do in our daily lives, how we choose to fuel our bodies, our minds, our spirits, how we, our physical activity. All of these kinds of things are so important in the path to preventing the suffering as we get older. And a lot of people don't know that that suffering can be reversed too. So they're just going to their allopathic medicine practitioner, their GP, and being handed pills, and then the pills need more pills for the side effects, and it goes on and on and on, and the acidity just builds in the body, and there's no chance of recovery. It's just, you're on your downhill slope to death, but you have to live in chronic pain and suffering for decades, and it just really got to me, that did. So poor quality of life, pig hunters, logging operators, truck drivers in the semi-rural practice that I worked at, no longer being able to do the things they love. That's not living. So longevity isn't like wanting to live forever. There's a few guys out there that are biohacking and their whole lives are focused around living to 150 or 200 or whatever with these wild things that they're doing. But this isn't about living forever or not living with your mortality within your sort of reality, I guess. I live my life with mortality in my reality, because then I strive for better and I live like harder, bolder, bigger, and I just hope that everyone can do that. We aren't invincible, we're here for a short time, and we want to make it count. We want to take those leaps of faith like you guys have coming here. We want to do these big bold moves and trust and have faith in the process and be okay with the so-called failures, just counting it as part of life's journey. And we want to be disease-free as we age. We want quality of life as we age. We want to be as well as we can be as we age. This is what longevity is about. It's about taking care of ourselves, so when we get into the older years, we're not plagued with illnesses and we're not popping a whole heap of pharmaceutical drugs. So we want to live better. We want good physical, mental, spiritual, emotional well-being as we get old. And just die in our sleep. Wouldn't that be nice? Just get old and die in your sleep. I think of Louise Hay passing in her sleep in her early 90s. Like, how nice. She was a wonderful woman and so well. So you end up having a more fulfilling and engaged life. There's a big component is social connection and not suffering and loneliness too, which is really common for older people. So being able to engage and have fulfillment in your life with your immediate family, or wider up to community level, really important. And like I've talked about chronic conditions, we want to prevent or delay as best we can. Great for society. If you're a well person in society, you're not costing the government, and like the medical system's not burdened, like it's very burdened at the moment, and that can alleviate that. Imagine if we all followed a lifestyle that led to longevity, how different the world would be. You have more time to spend with your loved ones and enjoy the activities that they enjoy as well. You don't have to be excluded because you're not this frail, brittle old person. You can actually join in and be part of it all. It's that belonging and contributing to society. A lot of people who are well as they age still work or on some level, or have a very active, their daily life's a bit laborious, they might be chopping wood, and there's a lot of activity in the daily life that's happening. It can be really nice to not be a burden to your family as you age. I know a lot of people as they get older are concerned about being a burden to their family, and the more well we are, the less likelihood of that happening. And if we continue to choose a growth path, a personal learning path, where we're expanding and we're not limiting ourselves, and we're saying yes to things that feel a bit daunting, that adds to longevity too, because you're focused on something more, new learning, new goals. You're never too old to learn something new or have goals for yourself. And I think of my great auntie, Diane's auntie. Diane and I are cousins, my dad and Diane. And she is such an inspiration in her mid-70s. There's nothing she would put a limit on herself. She would just get on and do it. She's doing headstands at 75 in yoga. She started in her 60s. She's done Aikido her whole life. Like, she's just so inspiring as an older person. And she's still shedding layers of herself. She's been on a growth path since her 20s, being introduced to naturopathy as a 20-year-old for healing, and using diet and things for healing. And she messaged me before I left to say that she's doing dream work with this amazing homeopath, and she's still shedding layers and going deep and learning about herself. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're my biggest inspiration. I love you so much. So when we're looking at the nutrition component of adding to longevity and supporting that, we want to have whole plant foods as majority of our diet. The more plants we can have, the better. We've got antioxidants and vitamins and minerals and all these other things that humans haven't yet discovered about plants. Plants are super potent. They also have a spiritual energy to them, and they can just work wonders in leveling up your health and keeping you well. And we want to have healthy fats, of course. And looking at our cellular health, so on a cellular level, how can we clean things up? And again, it goes back to that acidity and alkalinity, the pH, bringing in more alkalinity and hydration, especially in the form of foods, cellular hydration with hydrating foods, raw fruit and vegetables especially, and using electrolytes, the better things are going to go for us. And fasting is a wonderful tool to incorporate regularly, either juice or water every week or second week, 36 hours. If you can fit that in, that's going to really help too, because it clears inflammation, clears that acidity, and allows you to rejuvenate yourself. Exercise, of course, strengthening our bones, keeping that bone density up with good resistance, weight-bearing exercise, keeping our muscles strong, keeping our balance is really important. Looking after our mood and how our brain functions just from exercise. We don't often make that connection, that exercise is actually very, very good for our brain health. And it's about choosing something that you love doing. So try and make it less of a chore as possible and have the path of least resistance to making it a new habit. So I was actually talking about this morning with someone of creating a habit for anything. You want to remove resistance as best you can, and that will mean if you're wanting to get out and exercise in the morning, getting all your gear ready the night before and having it right there in your bedroom where you're actually just going to put it straight on, and telling yourself, I'm only going to go for a walk around the block, I'm going to do a 5-minute or 10-minute walk. So you're starting somewhere to create the habit, and you're not making it difficult, because our minds tell us things like, oh, a walk around the block's not going to be enough. What's that going to do for me? I'm not going to get fit doing that. We tell ourselves all these stories because we think that we should be going big and spending an hour and doing 5 or 10K or something to make a difference, but literally getting outside, being in the fresh air, being in the sun, being in nature, and just walking for 5 or 10 minutes will change things up. It will make you feel so good. And then over time, when that habit's created and you know how good it feels, then you end up having the chance to expand. Maybe I'll get up a little bit earlier and do a half hour. Maybe I'm going to do an hour today, whatever you choose to do. It's a great way to go about it. So finding something you enjoy is really important, and of course there's a myriad of things that you could choose, and it's about being open to trying. Always stay open, always be open to experimenting with things so you can then find what works for you. I love walking and stretching. It's really great, especially if you're doing quite a full-on, high raw diet or juicing, or you're wanting to heal, because hardcore physical activity can actually be acidic on the body, lactic acid build up, so that's more acid for the body to clear. So it's quite nice just to walk and stretch if you are undergoing a healing program. And with my clients, I just ask them to do some walking and stretching. That's it. I'm not the exercise, anything more intense, weightlifting and all that, can come after the healing period, when you're back into a balance with your diet and coming into like an equilibrium that suits you and your wellness needs. That's when you can start to look at some more strenuous activity. Mental well-being. So, gosh, everything's interconnected and overlaps. It's exercise uplifts our mood and how we feel, helps with depression and anxiety. Having gratitude, just, as soon as you open your eyes in the morning, thank you for this comfortable bed, thank you for my home, thank you for anything that you can. I will go on to, like, I'm so thankful that I have water that just runs out the tap when I turn it on, or a washing machine. Imagine not having a washing machine. Imagine scrubbing down at the river on some rocks or whatever that people did not that long ago, like a washing machine is just such a modern convenience that I'm grateful for. So anything that you can think of that you're grateful for, even if it's just one thing and it's very mundane, do it. Gratitude gets you everywhere, I like to say. And it's that perception and perspective thing too. It's a good remedy for feeling like crap. The diet, the social connection, prioritizing yourself, being aware first of what you need and want is very difficult for women in particular. I've been through this myself. Like, I literally couldn't even identify my own wants and needs, and so it's been a practice and an awareness thing of, okay, what do I really want? And then being able to express that and being able to know what your line in the sand is with things, speaking up for yourself, or using written communication initially if you're not comfortable to use your voice, because that's another real common thing where women especially, we're not very good at speaking up for ourselves. So that self-care, what you want and need, expressing those things, and also learning how to say no. And you don't need to give a no immediately to people. You can say, if you're out and about and someone's asking something of you, I will have to check my calendar when I get home, check my schedule when I get home, and get back to you. Always buy time, and then again, checking in with self. How much time do I really have for this? Do I even want to do this for this person? Or do I want to go there if it's an invite? How am I feeling? You really need to give yourself the space and time before answering invites or people when they're asking things of you. Initially, for someone who's a yes person, this is going to be very difficult. It's going to feel very full on in the body. There will be a lot of anxious feelings. Tummy might feel sick. That's what I often will experience if faced with that, because I'm still a recovering people pleaser and learning this myself, and it's been years in the making. And it will be probably a lifetime practice where I might feel quite uncomfortable at times to speak up, but it's so important, and others will be uncomfortable if they're used to you always being at their beck and call, and that you just at a drop of a hat answer this, call, text, email, all this kind of thing. If they're just used to having you on tap, they're not going to like it initially. These people don't like it initially, but their feelings are their feelings, they're not your own. Their experience is their experience, it's not yours. And I tell you what, it won't take long for them to adjust to the new you. Social connection, yeah, I've talked about this. Joy bringers, laughter, playfulness, inner child stuff. I bought myself Sylvanian family babies a couple of years ago because I wanted them so much as a child and I didn't have them. And they're so cute. And Ted's bought me some more and they're just so cute and I'm so happy to have them. So just anything that brings you joy, even if it is a bit silly or not age appropriate, there are no rules. You can do whatever you like. If it's bringing you joy, that's a good thing. Joy is an alkaline emotion, a high vibrational frequency. The energy of joy is high and we want to bring it in as much as we can. Social connection, like I was saying before, whether it's your immediate family or friends or external family, pets. Pets can bring so much joy and connection as well, so much love. Joining groups and classes and community groups and all of this kind of thing. Volunteering if you've got something to give back, if you've got knowledge and skills you can share, it's very fulfilling to do this kind of work. And yeah, it's just like more emotional support in your life, people to connect with, people to chat with. You'll just generally feel less stress and more joy and more fulfillment in your life when you've got others around you. Humans are not meant to be in solitude, and I feel so sad when I think of how lonely people are and the lack of physical connection as well. People that haven't experienced the warmth of a hug in who knows how long, let alone anything else. It's quite sad how society is in that respect. Sleep and rest. Oh my gosh, sleep is a little bit of a tough one for me too at times. I really have to prioritize it. I don't do well with not much sleep, and I know a lot of others don't either. Some people have naturally high energy and don't need as much. When we sleep and we rest, the glymphatic system, which is the taking out the trash in the brain, so we've got the lymphatic system, but the brain has its own lymphatic system and process for taking the trash out in the brain, that the glial cells get rid of all that junk overnight as we sleep. So we actually detox the brain as we sleep, and we want to be able to sleep well and have enough of it for that purpose. It's rejuvenating, refreshing. It helps with memory and cognitive function and focus, and gives us bandwidth with our emotions. Like you're not going to go 0 to 100 and have such irritability and titchiness if you've had enough sleep. We just are all round better humans when we've had good sleep. And rest, so important. Rest is not lazy. Rest is something that people struggle to take time to do, and I'm one of those people. I was brought up by like a rushing woman who was on her feet and like cold cups of tea everywhere and eating standing, which I actually still do a lot of. But being okay, like telling yourself and even maybe scheduling it in to get horizontal, even lie down on a couch or a bed or out on the grass for 5 minutes during the day, it's going to make a huge difference. It also takes a big burden off the organs that are compressed by gravity all day. So if we're vertical all day, there's a downward pressure on our bodies, and that's why when we lie down, because we're shifting that pressure of gravity. So it's a really nice thing to do in the middle of the day if you can make that happen for yourself somehow. And yeah, everyone should definitely focus on adding more rest, and it can be very productive to rest when we push ourselves and think of all the shoulds. And it's more productive to take a break oftentimes and rejuvenate yourself, refresh, give to yourself, if you need a nice cup of gin or cacao, to sit in the sun, to lie on the grass for 5 or 10 minutes, huge gift to yourself, and I highly recommend it. Environmental factors, so we live in quite a toxic world and a lot of it's out of our control, but where possible, looking at what you're putting on your body and using in the shower, your makeup, what's being sprayed around your environment, eating more organic and homegrown food if possible. All of this kind of thing reduces our exposure to toxins. And EMF is electromagnetic frequencies, which every electronic device emits, and Wi-Fi emits, and the cell phone towers, and that energy can interfere with our body's energy also. And some people are more sensitive than others. I'm one of those people. I can't have a laptop on my lap because it will just, my legs start buzzing and feel awful. Aches start coming up in my lower back. I just can't do it. So protecting yourself from EMF, switching Wi-Fi off overnight if you can, there's different crystals that help a lot with EMF protection, tourmaline, obsidian, like the black crystals, shungite, and you can also wear it on your body. There's all kinds of things there. If you'd like more information, I can send you a link. Life Energy Designs is one place I get some of my bits and pieces from, including my pendant, which I'm not wearing at the moment. And a good remedy for the EMF too is getting out in nature and putting your bare feet on the ground. It will replenish your energy and get those negative ions in. So from nature we get the negative ions, which are good, and from electronics and being indoors in artificial light and stagnant air, we're getting positive ions, which are not good. So we want to clear that out. So that's going to that atomic level again, like I was talking about in the first talk, with your protons and electrons. So your electrons are that alkaline influence and the protons are the acidic influence. So same in nature, we can get our negative ions or alkalinity from nature. Getting your hands in the dirt and gardening, being out swimming in the river, the lake, the ocean, really beautiful. Being on the beach with bare feet, we always feel rejuvenated and replenished when we spend time in nature. It's so important. Having a strong sense of purpose, like I mentioned before, having something that you're wanting to attain or achieve is really great. Keeping that positive perspective, we get to choose how we react or respond to every single person and situation around us. If we can choose to give ourselves spaciousness and grace when we make mistakes. I've made so many mistakes, especially in business, because I basically just wing it. But it's about being able to say, okay, is this an emergency? Did anybody die? Let's take a check-in. Am I doing all right here? You know, it's just using your perspective on things in life shifts everything, and it's incredibly potent, and it's a practice like everything. Nothing happens like that. I'm sorry, I can't just like download it, but yeah, changing your perspective, you'll be far less stressed as well. It's a great way to manage your stress, is to change how you think and perceive things. Don't stay stuck. Choose to take that first step. We've got Enneagram workshop, amazing opportunity with Sarah to take that first step, or maybe it's not your first step, but it just really brings everything forward as far as your areas to work on. For me, it was just mind-blowing how accurate it was, my Enneagram reading, and also we had a relationship one, my partner and I, just to have insight into yourself like that, and also starting points for your areas of work. And the whole people-pleasing thing is in my Enneagram, and I'd already been doing a lot of work on things, but all of it made sense. I was like, oh yeah, I've been working on that and working on that and working on that for a few years, and I'm progressing. So that's a really nice starting point of self-awareness that you might not get to without that tool. Sometimes it's a fast track. Sometimes we can just take a long time to see things for ourselves. This is a more fast track process where we can go, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I am like that, oh shit. And then you can start to take the steps. What's the first step that you can take? You don't need to go all in. Baby steps add up. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill, you know, little by little by little, it all progresses, and you get somewhere and you feel good. And as you do it, you feel good and better, and it propels you forward, that forward moving energy. Don't stay stuck. Be open to change, be open to trial and error. The blue zones, oh my gosh, who knows about the blue zones? Yeah, cool. So the blue zones were identified by Dan Buettner, who works for National Geographic, as areas around the world that have natural longevity. So they have the highest numbers of centenarians, people who live to 100 naturally, 100 plus, and aren't medicated and are living these fulfilled, connected lives well. And yeah, they just have this it's amazing. There's a Netflix documentary if anyone is interested and hasn't come across them. So the Okinawa, Japan, although they're saying that that's shifting a bit with the modern Western influence, that they're shifting their culture a bit, unfortunately, away from the traditional. Sardinia in Italy, Nicoya in Costa Rica, Icaria in Greece, and Loma Linda in California, in the US. And they are Seventh-day Adventists, and Seventh-day Adventists eat vegetarian or fully plant-based diets, and they have that strong community sense with the church. And interestingly, there's a crossover between those 5 blue zones. They all have like a crossover of the way they live life, in common. It's quite interesting. So these are the common threads, that they're largely eating a plant-based diet. It's very minimally processed. They eat seasonally. They're kind of living with nature's ebbs and flows, and they eat meat sparingly, often on a special occasion, and it's very small portions compared to what the Western world are consuming. They eat a lot of legumes and beans as well, nuts. They don't overeat, so it's light meals, especially in the evening, do really well at that. Their exercise isn't really hardcore, like they don't go to gyms to get their physical activity. It's that daily life stuff that needs to happen that they're incorporating their physical activity into. So it sounds like a great way to do it. It's a completely different way of living than our modern Western society. So it's low intensity kind of stuff. They're not going and thrashing themselves. They have really close-knit communities, and they have close bonds with their family. They spend a lot of time with family. They eat around a table together. They really have family as their focus and priority. They have that sense of purpose. They manage their stress well. They use prayer and other spiritual practices, and they have a slow-paced, intentional life. Religious and spiritual beliefs, and live in harmony with nature. They've got fresh air around them. They're not living in big built-up city areas. Often in rural or semi-rural areas, they've got clean drinking water. Living with nature. This is not mentioned in the 5 blue zone areas, but I feel like they're having great intimate time, pleasure and connection in that sense as well. Our sexual well-being is really important, and experiencing sexual pleasure is really important part of being human and feeling top-notch. So I do wonder about that. Might send Dan an email or a message to just see if he delved into that side of things. But having I'm not even just talking about partner, but even having a pleasure practice as a single or solo person and partnered, or even if you're with a partner, you can still have your own pleasure practice, and that activates creative life force energy. The womb space in women is a creator space. That's where babies, grow and born from the space, but we can also use our womb space as a channel for creativity and bringing things to life in that sense. So amazing for any goals or business or anything that you've got going on, to activate your sexual energy and allow that to come through in your life. And of course there's all the feel-good hormones that are connected with that too. On to the brain. We want to look after our memory. We want to have good problem solving abilities as we get older. We want to be able to make decisions well and be sure in our decision making, because people when they get older get really taken advantage of, and like elder abuse on the extreme end, but people start to in families they start to maybe baby their elders and think that they're inept, and it's not true, and we don't want to end up giving away our power to other people just because we're old. Don't believe in it. Clear thinking, and then reducing the risk of degenerative illnesses, so dementia and Parkinson's disease and this kind of thing. We want to look after the brain and prevent those from occurring. Doctors' Schurz's eye, they're husband and wife, and I never know how to say they're the Dr. Schurz's eyes or Doctor's Schurz's eye. Anyway, Dean and Aisha Schurz's eye, they are amazing neurologists that specialise in plant-based wellbeing, and they're all about getting those leafy greens in. So any leafy greens, it's all on the table. Don't have to worry about people talking about oxalates and all this kind of stuff. You don't need to bother worrying about that kind of thing. The greens are good for us. They should be in our diet. If you've got issues with kidney stones, that's not to do with the oxalates. That's more of a utilisation issue, but I'm not going to go in depth with that. The cruciferous vegetables, that's your broccoli and cauliflower and broccoli sprouts and cabbage and all of those kinds of things, really, really good for helping detox the brain and the body in general. Really supportive to the liver. Berries, yum, delicious, full of goodness. We should be having berries in our day-to-day life. So great for reducing inflammation and supporting the stress in our bodies, helping our memory, helping our cognitive abilities. Nuts and seeds, especially the ones with omega-3 content, so your walnuts, flax seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, getting those into your daily life, excellent choice. And they're also high in vitamin E. If you want to supplement with omega-3, you can do an algae plant-based one, or you can choose a fish oil that has been tested for heavy metals and is wild-caught, wild origin, if you're wanting to go there. Whole grains, oats and quinoa, brown rice, ideally staying away from gluten because it's basically glue, and as soon as, has anyone mixed up white flour and water before? And it's so sticky that that's not good for our insides. It can really junk things up, and it can be really inflammatory the way that it's grown. It's been hybridized, it's sprayed to death. Some people are better with organic and fermented, like sourdough, and you can just see what works for you. Personally, I know I don't do well on wheat, but every now and then I'll dabble because there's some really delicious things that are made from wheat. Rude. Legumes, lentils, beans, chickpeas, peas, really, really good for stabilising the blood glucose levels, preventing energy crashes, and helping that brain go hard and do well. And the brain's favourite source of fuel is glucose, so that comes from our plant foods. Healthy fats, avocado, olive oil and coconut oil are the three good ones to use. And yeah, it's just very anti-inflammatory, reducing that oxidation. I don't know if you've heard of free radicals, reactive oxidative species, but we want to clear those out, and we can put the fire out on that inflammation by having our healthy fats and having our plant food. And herbs and spices, turmeric, everyone knows a lot about turmeric, curcumin, super anti-inflammatory, cinnamon, which is in the goddess greens, sage and rosemary, they're all really wonderful for memory and cognitive function and reducing inflammation. Fermented foods I'm not hugely into, but the Schurz's eyes are quite keen on it. I feel like if you've got any gut issues like constipation, bloating, gas, you want to fix your gut first before getting on to eating fermented foods. And often people who have histamine intolerance issues, where like they get itchy and reactive to food, and even people who get welts when they get stung or bitten and this kind of thing. That's an overactive histamine response, and this can actually make it worse. It can also make yeast overgrowth worse in the body. If you have issues with yeast infections, it can make things worse. Okay, you're gonna love these next ones. Dark chocolate. So chocolate, ideally 70% or more cocoa solids, and cacao drinks, which I really enjoy. I'm doing very well without my cacao drinks. I haven't actually thought of them till now. How good. I know I very much have an addiction with it. Making it up with honey or maple syrup or coconut sugar for sweetness. It's a really good one for people who struggle with chocolate addiction in general. You want to get away from the dairy chocolate. Very, very important to make that switch to a plant-based dark chocolate version, or having the hot cacao drink is a nice one to get you away from eating chocolate. Because it's so yummy and it is addictive. But really good for your memory and your attention and problem solving. It increases blood flow, increases the nitric oxide, so really wonderful for the brain. Tea and coffee. Tea and coffee are dehydrating on a cellular level, but if you're a well person and you enjoy it, then have a coffee a day. Just don't use it as a crutch, don't use it as a false energy pick-me-up. People end up relying on it like that, and it really burns out the adrenals. It really adds to the stress load on the body. So again, if you're someone who's under a lot of stress, coffee can add to that. However, it's not all terrible because it's full of antioxidants. Black tea, green tea as well, rich in antioxidants. And green tea, which is in the goddess greens, matcha green tea, has L-theanine, which is an amino acid that's very calming. So what matcha does, or green tea, is that it uplifts and energizes in a really subtle, sustained way that also helps you feel grounded and less anxious, and can actually support sleep as well. I just recommend taking it in the morning or after, sort of not beyond 3 p.m. if you're into green tea or the goddess greens, so it doesn't disturb your sleep. So other things that you can do is try new activities, use like word finds and Sudoku and games and things like that challenge your mind. And you might want to play an instrument. There might have always been something you thought, oh, I'd love to play that. Why not go and get some lessons? Singing, dancing, all these new things that you can go and give it a go. Pottery, you might want to get your hands on that clay and make something, create. Yes. Oh, protecting your head, wear your helmets. Like if we're talking about physical injury, just being sensible with any kind of hectic activities like skiing or snowboarding, making sure we're protecting our heads in that way. Brain injuries are just tragic. What some people experience is very, very sad, and so we want to prevent as well. And again, I've got positive outlook, perspective. It's a big one. Reduce your caffeine intake if you're struggling with sleep, because it has a 6-hour half-life, meaning that if you were to have an espresso coffee and say it had 100 milligrams of caffeine in it, in 6 hours it's still going to have 50, and it's accumulative too. So for anyone who has sleep difficulties, you need to get off the coffees. It's really important. And even energy drinks, sometimes even the black tea and all of that kind of thing, because people can end up having 7 or 8 cups of tea a day, and again it has that accumulative effect and it's quite dehydrating, so we've got to be conscious of that. Having a bedtime routine. Has anyone got a bedtime routine, even if it's like changes up a little bit each night? But yeah, having a bedtime routine, that might be just getting your legs up the wall while you're lying on a Shakti mat, so you're like killing 2 birds with 1 stone there. Or listening to some relaxing music, or having a shower and putting some essential oils on, There's so many things you can do, but it's a really nice thing to create some form of wind down before you head to bed. Also really important to keep screens out of the bedroom, charge it in a living space, kitchen, that kind of thing, because it's just, even having it there beside you, even if you're not using it or you don't plan to use it, it can be interfering with your sleep, and keeping off them for at least an hour or two before sleep time. I am sometimes guilty of not doing that, but just having that awareness and doing your best with it, really important. Get sleepy. Oh yeah, that's the podcast that I used a bit. There's this man who's got this great voice. His name's Thomas, and the Get Sleepy podcast is on Spotify and usually it's everywhere. You can find it everywhere. But Thomas, Get Sleepy, such a good one for helping you get off to sleep. I also have like an affirmations playlist with Louise Hay that I'll listen to at night, and that's really nice for the subconscious to get those positive messages as I sleep. And I've mentioned getting your legs up the wall, using a Shakti mat, all really helpful. Yoga Nidra, which is beautiful as well. Lots of this kind of stuff on Spotify. Insight Timer app, which is a really nice one for meditations and things that you can find on there. I found this interesting. I did not know this. So weight training increases levels of brain-derived neurotropic factor, a protein that supports neuron growth, our nerve cells, neurons are nerve cells, and cognitive function. So lifting weights is very good for cognitive function. Walking, jogging, cycling, dancing, yoga, tai chi, qigong, arts and crafts, ball games, just being active. Managing your stress, knowing your line in the sand like I've discussed, and learning to say no, also important to alleviating stress in your life, even though it's very difficult to implement at the beginning. It's so worth it as you go on. Nootropics are herbs that can support your brain health. Lion's mane is one that I love, lion's mane mushroom, and the neural nectar some of you will have got. So they're different herbs and mushrooms, plants that can really enhance our brain function, help clear brain fog and help our focus. Some herbs to look into, ashwagandha as well, ginkgo biloba, gotu kola, rhodiola, panax ginseng, brahmi, which is an Ayurvedic one like the ashwagandha, sage, rosemary, turmeric, which you could do in tea, and matcha green tea. So there's lots of plant allies that we can use to help our brains function better. And I've just got a list here of where you can learn more about it, and you'll be able to access all of that when I send you through the slides. Does anyone have any questions about what I've talked about today?
Yeah, I do. I'm really curious to know what your thoughts are around protein intake for perimenopausal women, because so much of the literature suggests that we should be having heaps of protein
Yeah.
to support muscle, keep muscle, grow muscle, keep muscle, maintain
Yeah.
muscle.
Yeah, I know, it's wild. I don't agree with it personally. I don't think we need as much as we're led to believe. We need amino acids, definitely need amino acids, but when we consume a lot of protein, especially animal protein, our body then has to digest that, break it all down into amino acids to then utilize it. And that's just like a real process, and you can feel when you've had heavy protein rich food how it sits in your gut. And it can be slow to digest, and it's quite heavy compared to having lighter plant-based proteins as well. But all plants contain protein, amino acids, and the body can do absolutely perfectly well on plant protein alone. I think it's also a little bit individual, so again, just openness to giving things a go for yourself, trialing having a protein-rich breakfast versus having a fruit-rich breakfast first up, and then maybe having the protein at the next meal. Too much protein is acidic on the body, and it's also a burden to the kidneys. So it is. You can reverse kidney disease by having a low-protein plant-based diet. It's happened many times. And yeah, so you can, I think you can just not get too fixated on protein intake. Yeah, all of my learnings with what I know is that we don't have to stress about it, that we can do really well on just a standard amount of protein. We don't need to have 120 grams a day or 100 grams a day or whatever people are saying. But if some people feel really good doing that, that's okay. Yeah, I have no trouble building muscle on a low protein, low fat diet and feeling strong. Yeah. Yeah. And even fruitarians that are super strong and muscly. So yeah, just knowing that we get our amino acids from the plants as well, and we don't have to go overboard with because when people eat a really protein rich diet, it's acidic food, it's eggs, dairy and milk, and eggs, dairy and meat, and that's when it will take from our health. So it's one thing to have an aesthetic, like a body that looks good, but is that body functioning well? You know, you can see people that have abs and muscles and looking svelte and sexy, but are they pooping well? Are they menstruating well? You know, like have a regular cycle? What's their gut health like in general? What are their energy levels like? All of this kind of thing, because people can look very physically fit, and bodybuilders especially, but they're actually in chronic pain, like lots of aches and pains and stiffness. They don't have any flexibility in their body because of all of that acidic food. And yeah, that's just something that I'm aware of. I look at people and I think, well, okay, you look super hot, your body's banging, but what's your true health like? And that's what matters most. And when you focus on your true health, as far as your diet and your sleep and your physical activity and your spiritual connection and all of this social connection, all of that kind of thing, your body will adjust to where it's meant to be naturally. It will become its natural size for you. And it won't be an overweight body either when you do that. Are there any more questions?
And the only one I was thinking of just came to mind is about bone density and as we get older and how we perhaps continue to improve on that.
Yeah, so definitely the like lifting weights and weight bearing kind of resistance activity, like doing planks or prone kind of work. Yeah, anything, Pilates. Yeah, definitely. Pilates is amazing for that because it kind of ticks all the boxes, does the full body. And yeah, keeping your diet low in acidic foods. Dairy doesn't increase your bone density or improve your bone health. It actually does the opposite, but we've all been kind of led to believe that there's a lot of lobbying behind these food groups, especially the dairy and the meat industries, where we've been told certain things so that the sales go up. You know, they want to sell the product. So we've been told a lot of lies. The food world is quite corrupt. And yeah, so you can keep your bones well with the physical activity and keeping your inflammation low and keeping the alkaline foods high. Those are the most important things. Getting your calcium from nuts and seeds and broccoli and oranges and figs and all these different things is really good because it's just an alkaline way of going about it. And you can add in, if you were really concerned about your calcium levels, there's natural calcium. I know, for example, Lifestream do a natural calcium that is just a mineral powder naturally harvested from it's like a shell fossil algae kind of. It's a plant-based, mineral-rich algae, I think, that just they put into a powder, and that's actually a really nice way if you want to get more minerals in, which we should all be doing, and also fortifying your calcium levels if you're really concerned about that, if there's a family history of osteoporosis or if your bone density is at risk as well. And that's an alkaline way of going about it. Because dairy is also mucus producing, and the cows have to suffer and the calves have to suffer, and we don't have to do any of that. Any other questions? If anything pops into your mind later, then please just come to me or send me a message on WhatsApp, because I can answer questions, no trouble. And just thank you for being here. I feel so blessed. It has been an amazing 3 days. It feels like 3 years. But yeah, there's just been like a real collapsing of timelines happening. Lots of opening up. I see everyone flourishing and just getting the most out of their time here, and that's what we really wanted, was for everyone to do what they needed to do for themselves.